Wednesday Health and Social Care Level 2 class. As usual, I'm just going to run through a few slides for you. The aims of today's session. Obviously, we'll have a look at our working agreement first as well. We're going to have a look at Technical Certificate Unit 7, which is Principles of Safeguarding and Protection in Health and Social Care. And obviously, I'll go through, the various outcomes for you, or questions, if the better know, and hopefully help to break some of them down if they need to be broken down, and discuss the sort of level of answers we're looking for. And then the same with Technical Certificate Unit 8, which is Understand the Role of the Social Care Worker. Then we'll have a look at the session handout, and of course then we'll have the summary just to finalise it. Now I'm sure most of you know me by now, but I don't need to go through everything. Obviously I've got my contact details down here on the bottom, just in case you've not written them down. I've got them anywhere. So if you'd just like to take a moment and write those down if you've not got them. So moving on to the qualification makeup, which is your employer's rights and responsibilities, your ERR workbook. You've got your technical certificate. You've got your main aim. You've got functional skills exams in English, which are made up of speaking and listening, and then reading and writing. And you've also then got your functional math on a different day, obviously. And then you've got PLTS, which is your personal learning and thinking skills. Now, our working agreements, as I'm sure a lot of you know, I do like people to be on time. If you're more than 5 minutes late, I'll need to leave purely because I already be on the class, and it could be a disruption if I have to repeat what's already been said. So if you know you're not available till, for example, 20 to 5 or quarter to 5, then log on to class and wait for the report. I also like everyone to take part. Don't be shy. We've got a chat box down here in the bottom, so you just chat away in there, and if I'm going too fast or if I'm going too slow, or you don't understand something, so be involved in the session. Ask questions at the end of each session. Now, I am meant to do that myself at certain breaks in the class, but obviously I nearly always forget. So if you've got a question at any time, just let me know about it. I'm always asking for your work to be ready on time. A bit of an issue at the moment with a few students, so I would like to see progress there, please. And then also you can just turn off the microphone, as it causes on my end. Okay, thank you very much for that. So I shall just go back to the aims of the session. As I said, first we go to principles of safety and protecting health and social care. Okay, so the first outcome is knowing how to recognise signs of abuse. Now, of course, if you look at your safeguarding workbook that you've already done, you will have all the various different types of abuse. You've been asked to put definitions in there. So why not have a look and see what you did in that? For this question of 1.1, define the following types of abuse. And don't forget, as I always say, the descriptor is the first word of the question. Now, what does define mean? Well, in your learner handbook, you'll find 4 or 5 pages of descriptors. Now, I advise everyone to print those off and keep them with you when you're working, obviously, at your computer or whatever, because it is very important that you follow the descriptor. I've fallen badly in the past where I haven't, and I've just, I've sort of just like almost explained following types of abuse, and I've explained them. This one's from defining. Okay, so define the following types of abuse, and there it lists them all. Okay, so you need to do each single one. So you've got some answers there really in one question. Okay. 1.2 is to identify the signs and or symptoms associated with each type of abuse. And again, the exercise you did in your safeguarding workbook, you had to put there the signs or symptoms. So have a look back and see what you wrote. Maybe you can improve on what you wrote in the safeguarding workbook. Because the idea is obviously throughout your qualification, you are developing yourself further and further. So it'll be interesting to see, how many people have actually developed further since they did their safeguarding workbook. 1.3, describe factors that may contribute to an individual being more vulnerable to abuse. So, in other words, what is that asking you for? Describe factors that may contribute to. So, in other words, in situations, what happens to people that can make them become an individual that is more vulnerable to abuse. If you're struggling with any questions at all, do what I always do. I read them out loud 3, 4 times, break them down into half. Look at that. Describe factors that may contribute to. So what does that mean? And then once you've broken that down in your own saying, then add it on to an individual being more vulnerable to abuse. And you will find it's okay, so it takes a little bit of time, but it can be easier than you just getting and giving the wrong answer. And then 1.4, know how to respond to suspected or alleged abuse. So in there, obviously, I want you to tell me, what you would do if you suspected anything in that way. Okay, so learning outcome 2 is know how to respond to suspected or alleged abuse. The 2.1 is explain the actions to take if there are suspicions that an individual is being abused. So, for example, you've been working with an individual, with a let's say client A, for some time, and then all of a sudden you've got a suspicion things aren't right. We all have this gut feeling, as we call it, and never ever ignore a gut feeling. It is always better to report a suspicion and for it to be looked at and found out to be nothing than to have ignored it and later on found out it was a severe case of abuse. So always go by your gut feelings, that's what I always advise. So in there, I want you to tell me that if you have got a suspicion that an individual is being abused, what actions do you take? Now, with regards to the length of your answers, level 2, it's not basic at all in any way, shape or form. You do require to put a really good paragraph with the answer within it. I'm not expecting you to write essay form, like a full page or anything like that. That is not expected at level 2. What is expected is a good, precise answer, and you clearly show that you understand what you have done there. So moving on to 2.2, explain the actions to take if an individual alleges that they are being abused. So, okay, don't get the questions mixed up. Sometimes people say to me, oh, the questions are all the same, it's the same answers. It isn't. Think, take your time, and just read the questions out to yourself a couple of times. So what you're going to be doing this time, so client A actually comes to you and says, they are being abused. What actions do you take? So tell me that there. And then 2.3, identify ways to ensure that evidence of abuse is preserved. Okay, so you know that some form of abuse has just taken place. You're with the client or whoever it may be. It could well be a colleague who's been abused. It's not necessarily a client, whoever that individual is, and you're there at that time. So what ways can you ensure that evidence is preserved? What type of abuse is it? If it is obviously severe as sexual, you've got clothing, no showers, no bathing, etc. If it's physical, I think punching, and they've got scars, and bleeding and what have you. Any tissues with blood on, the type of thing. All the evidence. How do you ensure that it's preserved? So the response of outcome for 8 is to understand the national and local context of safeguarding and protection from abuse. So 2.1 is to identify national policies as well as local systems that relate to safeguarding and protection from abuse. So here we need to do some research. We need to identify national policies, which is obviously health and social care in England. Find out what the policies are that relate to safeguarding and protection from abuse. And then local systems, so you're looking at your own organisation, what policies are in place there that relate to safeguarding and protection from abuse. So this is a 2-part answer, don't forget it. 3.2. Explain the roles of different agencies in safeguarding and protecting individuals from abuse. So, obviously, there's all sorts of different people that are involved, from obviously yourselves, your managers, the doctors, etc. There's an awful lot of examples. So tell me about the different roles of all these different people and agencies. 3.3. Identify reports into serious failures to protect individuals from abuse. Now, hopefully, a lot of these questions you personally never come across, but on the other hand, you may well have done. Have you ever identified serious failures in protecting individuals from abuse? Has it ever happened in a home, an organisation that you've worked for? So, have a think. And if it hasn't happened to you, if you haven't had to identify reports into this, imagine a scenario and tell me what you would do, how you would identify a report, okay? 3.4, identify sources of information and advice about your own safeguarding, protecting individuals from abuse. So I want to know here all the different sources of information and advice that you can gather within your own job role around safeguarding and protecting individuals. So where can you go for information and advice? Obviously, you've got your policy within your own organisation. Where else can you go? Think about the question, do some research. Outcome 4 is understanding ways to reduce the likelihood of abuse. So again, here we've got a 3-part question here, and it's explain how the likelihood of abuse may be reduced by working with person-centered values, encouraging active participation, and promoting choice and life. So just take the top one first and work on that one. If you wish to put the 3 together, then that will be absolutely fine. But you'd be looking at a decent answer, and you must cover each point if you're going to do it as one. Otherwise, just take them separately and tell me how the likelihood of abuse could well be reduced if you're working with person-centered values. Okay, then do that, and then do exactly the same but for the next 2. Okay. 4.2, explain the importance of an accessible complaints procedure for reducing the likelihood of abuse. So this is quite obvious, I suppose, really, but just think about it. What is the importance of having that really good, accessible complaints procedure at work? Okay. So this does help reduce the likelihood of abuse. Learning outcome 5 is knowing how to recognise and report unsafe practices. 5.1, describe unsafe practices that may affect the well-being of individuals. Ooh, sorry, let me off. So, tell me about unsafe practices and how they can affect the well-being of that person. Simple as that. 5.2. Explain the actions to take if unsafe practices have been identified. So obviously you're working along and you've been, working for a few months or a few years or whatever. And I want you to tell me what actions you'll take because you've identified unsafe practices. Now, that's not talking about you've identified direct abuse, but it's an unsafe practice. So this is a way out scenario that I'm sure would never happen, and I hope to heaven that it doesn't. But you may well have witnessed a nurse, for example, who never washes her hands or puts gloves on before administering a medication via injection, for example. That's just a way out example. So, have you noticed any unsafe practices at all as you've been working? Have you actually identified them? And what actions have you taken? Again, give me a scenario if you haven't. And certainly not the one I've just mentioned. So, 5.3 is to describe the action to take if suspected abuse or unsafe practices have been reported, but nothing has been done in response. So you know yourself, there was suspected abuse or an unsafe practice, and you've reported this, and you've gone through the right channels, you've filled in all the right forms, and you know the various target dates and deadline dates for things to be done, and obviously these times have passed. What are you going to do about it? Or maybe it's a colleague that this is happening to. What would you advise her the action to take? Her or him rather, for the action to take? Because obviously, it's not just our role to, spot some form of abuse or an unsafe practice and then say, right, well, I've reported it now, that's the end of that. We need to make sure it's followed up and you're happy and satisfied with the outcome. Okay? So that's Unit 7. Looked at, which is the principles of safeguarding and protection in health and social care. Not too bad a unit. A few questions there that you're going to need to do some good research on. But overall, I'm sure you'll be quite happy doing that one. Obviously, if there's any queries or problems or anything I can help with and give you advice about, you just contact me. That's no problem at all. So now we're just going to have a look at Unit 8, which is understanding the role of the social care worker. So, the first learning outcome is understand working relationships in social care settings. Just 2 questions for this outcome. Explain how a working relationship is different from a personal relationship. So, I don't know, maybe you have got a colleague that you work with, but you do know outside work as well, as a friend that maybe you go out with socially. So, have a look at those 2. How do they differ? Maybe you've not got that type of relationship with anyone in work, so just your thoughts on how you think a working relationship would differ from a personal relationship with that person. And then 1.2, describe different working relationships in social care settings. So what kinds of different working relationships are there within your work, within your organisation, basically? That's what it's asking you. So obviously you've got yourself, you've got the care workers, You've got nurses, you've got senior carers, they're trying to be giving you the answers. That's what I'm looking for, okay? The different working relationships. So describe those to me. So learning outcome number 2 is to understand the importance of working in ways that are agreed with the employer. So 2.1. Describe why it is important to adhere to the agreed scope of the job role. Okay, so we've got a few funny words in here really. So basically what it's asking for is to describe why it is important to adhere is to do really, to do, what you're being asked of by your management in your job role. So obviously you'll have a job description, which is the agreed scope of the job role. So have a look at your job description and tell me why it is important that you do your job description, that you stick to your job description. Move on. And 2.2, outline what is meant by agreed ways of working. Now, I'll tell you nothing on that one. I'll need you to do a little bit of research and find out what are agreed ways of working. And then obviously outline what is meant by that. Explain 2.3, explain the importance of full and up-to-date details of agreed ways of working. So obviously you just answered 2.2, telling me what is meant by agreed ways of working. Now I want you to explain the importance of full and up-to-date details of agreed ways of working. Then learning outcome number 3 is to understand the importance of working in partnership with others. So 3.1, explain why it is important to work in partnership with others. So why is it important for you basically to get on with your colleagues? Because that's what you're looking at here, working in partnership with others. So it could be your colleague, it can be a manager, it could be a nurse, it could be a doctor, it could be the court, it could be anybody that you work with in your organisation. So tell me why it's important to work in partnership with others. And 3.2, identify ways of working that can help improve partnership working. So have you ever been working alongside someone or with someone and you thought to yourself, oh, it would be easier if we did this, it would be easier if we did that. So that's what I'm looking for here. Ways of working that could well improve that partnership. And 3.3, identify skills and approaches needed for resolving conflict. Okay, so a two-part question here. So you need to tell me the types of skills and approaches that are needed to resolve conflict. So skills and approaches. 3.4, explain how and when to access support and advice about partnership working and resolving conflict. So two-part answer again. How and when do you access support and advice? And that's the end of Unit 8. Oh, that was quite brief, wasn't it? Well, the role of a social care worker. So we've actually gone through and covered that. So that's very good. If anyone has any questions at all, or if there's anything you're unsure of that I've, within Unit 8 or within Unit 7, when you've had a look at this video and you're looking at your technical certificate saying, well, I'm still not too sure on that one, email me, phone me, text me. I'm here for you 24/7 to offer you support. That is not only my job, but that is what I want to do. That is what I enjoy doing. So please, let me help you. Let me give you advice and guidance. Don't struggle on your own and think, oh, well, that will do. Never leave an answer that you've written out and thought, oh, that will do. I want you to be positive within your answers, and I want to see your confidence shine through, especially as you grow throughout your qualification. So next is the session handout. Let's have a look at this week's session handout, which is around safeguarding. Now, excuse me, since I've been doing these classes over the last few weeks, 7 or 8 weeks now, obviously each week we've been doing session workouts. Sometimes you only have one, sometimes you have two to complete. Now, the session handouts, they are designed that they will also act as evidence within your workbooks, within your unit. So I'm not just giving you some extra work to do and you're thinking, why does she do this every week? It's purely to gain extra evidence for you. Because when your qualification is complete and it then goes on to the internal verifier and the external verifier, I want them to be able to see that not only have you answered the question in the unit, that's in 1.1, but you've backed your answer up with, 2, 3 or 4 pieces of evidence. And these type of session workouts, these are evidence. So, with good answers and good explanations, these will map as evidence, and that is why we do them. Now, I've not had many in since we've started. I get the odd one every now and again. So I would like everyone to have a look at your email. If you've not kept any of your emails and you've deleted everything, you need to get in touch with me and get copies of the worksheet and get yourself brought up to date. Okay, so this one is around safeguarding. Please explain why it is important to safeguard adults within your setting. And I want you to think about all the different scenarios that could potentially arise. It's not just a case of, oh, well, yes, I'll watch out for any bruises. I want you to think about all these different scenarios that you come across when safeguarding adults. In question 2, I want you to tell me your interpretation of person-centered approach. What is it to you? What does that mean to you? I don't want to know what the actual definition is of it. I want your wording of what you interpret that to be. Then question 3 is, what do we mean when we talk about partnership working in the context of safeguarding? And well, obviously that's the question you just had in the unit. The thing is, though, when you're attending these classes, you may well not be up to Unit 7 in your technical certificate. You might only be on Unit 1, Unit 2. So by the time you come to get to Unit 7, at least you'll be able to think, oh, I did that worksheet, I can look back. And that will be able to help you answer the question. And also, I've already got one piece of evidence then towards it. Obviously, if you've already passed Unit 7, you may well sort of look at your answers that you submitted and thought, well, I really didn't, do enough there, or, and then you can always submit, like this worksheet as extra evidence to back up that question. And finally, if an adult has been abused or harmed, what are the roles and responsibilities of the different organisations that may become involved? So obviously client A or your colleague or whoever it is, that individual has actually been abused or harmed. So every single person that is going to be involved from on in, I want to know what their roles and responsibilities are. Because you'll have a lot of different organisations that will get involved. Obviously you've got your own organisation and your own manager. Yes, that's fine, that's one. But you do some research and have a think about all the other different organisations that get involved. So I need you to tell me what they are and what their roles and responsibilities are. Okay. So that's your session handout for this week. It's not bad. You've only got that one sheet for this week. So to summarise then, we had another look at the agreement. Hopefully you're understanding now around Unit 7, Principles of Safeguarding and Protection in Health and Social Care. Hopefully you understand a little bit better, and I've broken down any areas that you may well have thought were difficult. And the same with Unit 8, understanding the role of the social care worker. But I'm sure you understand fully your own role. Who am I to tell you about that? You know best. But do you understand your role? Okay, and we've had a look at the session handout. So next week, technical certificate Unit 9 is to be discussed. But obviously Unit 9 is the final unit of the technical certificate. As you know, the first 1 to 9 units are mandatory units, which also make up the first 9 units of your main aims. So obviously you don't have to do them again, but we will RPL those to your main aims. So all you have to do is your main aim optional units, which obviously then there will be classes for those as well. So your technical certificate has all been about your knowledge, what you know about every single thing that you know that you can come up with an answer. When we move over to the main aims, you're looking at competency. What is it you can do? Show me you can do this. Show me how you do that. So you've got total opposites in workbooks there. So that's what we will be heading for in the very near future. So please, as I say, if you need any help or guidance, or a chat about any part of your qualification, please get in touch with me. And thank you for attending today, and I look forward to seeing you in class next week. So take care, have a good week. Goodbye.